Hello everyone, this is Jed Shlackman. I'm a holistic counselor, also a spiritual energy healer. And for this particular video, I want to speak about the topic of energy healing and why people are often skeptical about it. So there's a substantial percentage of the population who don't believe in the validity or value of working with energy healing. So if they have any concern, whether it's a physical or mental health concern, they wouldn't even consider some form of energy healing as an option for a therapy that might help them. So we're going to read something from a book called The Energy Healing Experiments. And this was from Gary Schwartz. And he was a researcher who did a lot of work through the University of Arizona. And he actually started his career as a skeptic, coming from a very kind of materialistic science viewpoint or background. But then as he began to investigate things and look at the actual evidence, both experimental and clinical, he concluded that energy healing is something very real and very valuable. And of course, if he's going to write a book about it, it must be something he considers valuable and worthwhile. So in the book, toward the end, there's a frequently asked questions section. And one of the questions is, why are some people so skeptical about energy healing? So I'll read from the book to share his perspective and perhaps add a few other comments or tangents from my own perception and experience. This is a complex and multifaceted question, and the answer is not simple. First, some people were taught that energy healing is impossible, and they strongly believe that what they were taught is the final word. When they are confronted with solid scientific evidence to the contrary, and even have direct personal experiences, this may cause them extreme discomfort, including anxiety, anger, and denial. Some super skeptics suffer from what I call PESD, post-educational stress disorder. The collection of symptoms are similar to, but typically much milder than PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Second, there is a wide range of economic implications concerning energy healing. Healthcare professionals who have no background or skills in these techniques sometimes feel threatened because they lack the skills, and they may be concerned that their patients might seek other healthcare providers, affecting the economics of their practice. Another economic implication concerns potential threats to the bottom line of drug companies to the extent that patients may reduce or eliminate their use of medications following successful healing energy treatments. Also, the economics of hospitals can be threatened because they perform money-making surgeries that may not always be advisable or necessary. Medical researchers are typically supported by grants and contracts from NIH, that's the National Institutes of Health, and drug companies. Because energy healing is controversial, there's an unfortunate built-in resistance to funding research if it occurs at the expense of conventional biomedical interventions. Third, there are philosophical and spiritual implications to energy healing. If we are all interconnected by energy and consciousness, as proposed by Einstein and Planck, that's Albert Einstein and Max Planck, and supported experimentally by contemporary scientists such as Dean Radin and Rupert Sheldrake, then there are vast implications for how we practice medicine as well as how we live our lives. Some of these philosophical and spiritual implications were discussed in chapter 19, the previous chapter in this book. There are people who dislike these implications and reject them out of hand. Finally, super skeptics often point out, rightly so, that there are fraudulent and unethical individuals who practice energy healing as a scheme for taking advantage of people who are suffering. These practitioners may encourage patients to avoid conventional medical treatment when it is in fact warranted. What super skeptics do is overgeneralize from these bad apples and assume that if a few apples are rotten, then all the apples must be rotten. So that's a general summary of some reasons why people are skeptical. People initially are not really taught about it in their culture or their family or their background, so it's not deemed as something that's true or valid because they're not exposed to it, and they may be taught something that's contrary or conflicting with the idea of energy healing. Then there are people who are just not comfortable with the implications of energy healing, that someone could channel some form of energy into your energy field without even touching you and have an influence. So if it could be done for a healing purpose, something to benefit you, then conceptually it can also be done in a negative or harmful way, and people wouldn't want to think about that possibility, so they might, as a result of that, decide not to believe that either is possible, not to believe that energy could be transmitted to you in either a beneficial or harmful way, when in reality both are possible. One other thing that Schwartz mentions is the question, what about experiments that appear to contradict some of our findings that support energy healing? And he says experiments can fail to replicate for numerous reasons. Sometimes experiments fail because there is no phenomenon to discover, or the phenomenon is not very strong or reliable. However, experiments can sometimes fail because the investigators did not take into account certain variables that are necessary to document or reveal the phenomenon. Some unanticipated variables may actually produce reverse or negative effects. For example, a study was published in 1998 in the Distinguished Journal of the American Medical Association that reported that healers could not sense the presence of an experimenter's hands. The authors claimed that their study was the first to have tested whether therapeutic touch practitioners could detect the energy of another person's hands. They were mistaken, see below. They further claimed that their failure to obtain positive results in this basic science study called into question numerous clinical studies, including double-blind studies of wound healing that had shown positive healing effects. However, my examination of their study revealed a number of potential problems. One, the experiment was conducted by a young adolescent girl for her science fair project. 2, she was the only experimenter. 3, the girl flipped a coin to determine which trials would be left-handed versus right-handed. 4, one of the authors was a founding member of a skeptics organization, quackwatch.org. And 5, the practitioners who were tested actually did significantly worse than chance. In other words, an unbiased analysis of the data revealed that the healers were correct less than what would be expected by chance when the girl's hand was above their left or right hands. Though the authors, presumably the adults, reviewed and discounted dozens of clinical studies published in the literature, they failed to mention prior published basic science research conducted by my colleagues and me, described in Chapter 4. Our studies included 1. Adult experimenters, 2. Multiple experimenters, more than 20, 3. A counterbalanced order of trials, as well as a greater number of trials, making the experiment more sensitive. Number 4. A variety of experimenter beliefs about the possibility of energy detection. And 5. The finding that our subjects, who are not even trained as healers, did significantly better than chance. As you may recall from Chapter 5, our research, as well as research by others, indicates that sensing energy includes the capacity to detect conscious intention in addition to the ability to detect the presence of physical energy. Though school science fairs each year produce some surprisingly insightful experiments, no one expects an adolescent to understand the rigors demanded of a trained professional scientist. The mystery is what led JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, to publish the experimental results of an unqualified adolescent, results that were then picked up by the media and reported widely, relying on the authority of that respected journal, with the unfortunate outcome that many people were left with false information that appeared on its surface to be authentic and reliable. So that's one example of how things are often skewed or manipulated to create the appearance of something being a conclusion or consensus in science when it's not what the true spectrum or depth of the evidence is indicating. So for those that are interested in energy healing, I encourage you to do your own exploration, not just of what evidence is presented out there, but to have your own personal experiences. Energy is everywhere. It's all around us. It's within us. It's what we are made of, in a sense. Every layer of our being is some form of energy. And if you're using a cellular phone, you certainly can believe that there is some unseen energy field or energy wave that's being transmitted that your phone is receiving and working with. So why wouldn't we be able to believe that there are unseen subtle energies that interact with our mind, our emotions, and our physical body and affect our health and well-being? I appreciate each of you for taking your time to view this video. For those that are interested in learning more about these topics or about healing services I provide, you can visit my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. May you each have a wonderful day. Namaste.